Good morning. I want to extend a warm welcome to you today. Here we embrace the inherent worth and dignity of all persons. Therefore, everyone is welcome here. You're welcome here regardless of your age, your race, your income, your religion, or the gender with which you identify. You're welcome here regardless of who you love, who you vote for, the regrets that burden you, or the mistakes you have made. In this safe community, we believe in each other, support each other in the sacred task of becoming, celebrate the transcending mystery of life, and rely on the transforming power of love. Here, we revere the words of the great teachers, such as Jesus, the Buddha, and Confucius. It is, however, the task of every UU to be their own Buddha, their own Jesus, their own Confucius. It is the cornerstone of our religion that we are co-creators of our own lives. And through the practice of authentic being, we find the creative energies to heal our bodies, our minds, our spirits, and our planet. It is our work as a community to walk with each other along the spiritual pathways that lead towards happiness, compassion, and life fully lived. And while we are a safe harbor where there is solace and healing, we are also a launching pad from which we are propelled into the tumult of life to live courageously, justly, and lovingly. In this sacred place, we create the structures that lift up the downtrodden, set the captives free, and heal the brokenhearted. Here we have learned that to be fully human,
so she was saying she could hear us talking.
That with a little help from our friends, we can each tell
because
our own unique story.
These have to be said.
So today we have a really delicious service, but the sermon is going to be pretty delicious too. Nadine Sapirman from the Citizens Climate Lobby will be speaking to us from New Jersey. And I understand that she, in addition to being a UU, is also on the tech committee with her church. So Nadine, it's good to have you here and looking forward to what you have to say. Everyone's giving you the wave now. You can wave back if you want to, Nadine. Or not, we're UUs. So, okay, so in addition to that, Barry Kitterman, who I know to be a great storyteller, is going to tell the kids' story. And the buff musicians will have some pretty great music for us throughout the whole service. So, but we're going to do things just a little bit differently today. When the service is ended, when we blow the chalice out, extinguish the chalice, we're going to not be getting up to do our usual circle benediction. We're going to have a question and answer period since Nadine is here. And that can last from 10 minutes to 20 minutes or however long people have questions and however long Nadine is willing to answer them. And then we'll have our circle of benediction, and then we can go out and have a potluck feast.
We light this chalice for the web of life which sustains us, for the sacred circle of life in which we have our being, for the earth and sky above and below, and for our Mother Earth and the mystery.
Thank you, Diane.
I think, as I look out at all of you today, I think you all realize that the threat that climate change poses to our future. And I'm just going to assume that you're all doing something, even as small as you may think it is, to fight this threat. Personally, I think all Americans need to change their way of living in order to make any dent in what's happening to our Mother Earth. And I don't think we can sit and wait for the politicians and the scientists to come up with a quick fix. I think we should all be doing what we can every day to fight climate change, no matter how big or how small. Myself, I feel like I was very, very fortunate because years ago, before I ever retired, I worked with a lady who was retiring and listening to all her plans, what she's doing in the future. And it made me wonder, well, what are you going to do when you retire? So even when I was still working, this is 10 or 15 years ago, I tried a few different volunteer groups and ended up with, which I still belong to, 2 environmental groups that work all over the country on projects dealing with the environment. luckily enough, but sadly enough, I've seen the destruction and despair that is happening around us. That unless you're there, you can't understand what's happening. That really strengthened my resolve to be a climate activist for the rest of my life and to live according to our principles to the best of my ability. When I ended up coming to Buff, I was just delighted and amazed. To me, the 5 acres that stretch beyond us is a living gift. It is full of plants and animals and all sorts of wildlife. And it's our responsibility to make this a safe haven for them so they can continue to live as this climate change threat comes heavier and heavier toward us. When I came to Buff, I was delighted also that there was a green sanctuary team, a team that was working to do the best they could to make the building and the property as green environmentally as possible. So I'll tell you a couple of things that are going on here that you may be unaware of. Number one, forever since I've been here, we've been trying to limit the amount of grass we mow to reduce gasoline and energy use, which now we have a battery-powered electric mower, so that takes care of that program. But we're still trying to reduce the amount of energy we have to expend, so we continue to add gardens. So we have a number of vegetable gardens. We have a raised bed garden out that is handicap accessible. We have added a large pollinator garden out front, and every year we have some people who donate natives for the berm. So our planting is not just to look good. Everything we plant has a purpose. We're trying to support the biodiversity that resides on this property with providing them the food, shelter, the things that they need. So that's part of the Green Sanctuary team. Another thing we've done is we started a small composting program. I don't know if you're aware that the raw food waste that you put in your trash every week goes to a landfill. When it's in the landfill and it rots away, it emits methane. Methane warms the climate. Why not bring it to a composting somewhere where you can compost it if you're not composting at home, and have it turn into a good organic compound when it disintegrates down into compost. When you spread that compost on your ground, it sequesters carbon. Plus it provides your gardens with wonderful organic material that helps your plants grow. So we'd like to increase that use here. Very, very simple. If you want to know what to do, you just bring your food waste here in a small container, only the fresh fruits and vegetables. You don't have to bring big garbage of trash. And we will take care of the mixing and the blending and the spreading of the compost. Another thing the Green Sanctuary team has started here is an ethical eating group. I don't know if all of you are aware of how damaging to the environment the typical American diet is. So we're trying to help people understand that eating plant-based can reduce some of those issues. And also that typical American diet, it violates a lot of human rights and a lot of animal rights, which go against our 7 principles. So those are some of the things that the Green Sanctuary team does. It's part of my journey. It's an ongoing journey that we would like everybody to be a process of here, even in some small way. It takes time and it takes effort, but I do think it will be very worthwhile. I have found that it is, and I think you will also. Thank you.
Prayer for Earth Community by Reverend William G. Sinkford. Spirit of life and love, dear God, we come first to confess. Our comforts, our wasteful ways have been purchased at a huge price. We thought Earth was here for us to use in any way we wished. The language of dominion over Earth led us astray. We are a part of the interconnected web of existence, not apart from it. We are born of Earth and supported by her bounty. She is our mother. We thought she could recover always, never be depleted, forgive even our most violent attacks. Our violation of Earth has amounted to matricide. By insisting that the poor and people of color bear the greatest human cost, we have been committing fratricide. By our headlong rush to use up Earth till she is spent, we have been committing suicide. Dear Mother, we are beginning to see what we have done. We promise to do everything in our power to bring the violation to an end. We pray that we will have the wisdom and the will to do this well. We pray we are not too late. We pray that we have the imagination, the will, and the spirit to heal our Earth community, to sustain you as you have sustained us. As new winds of hope sweep across the land, let us rise to embrace them. Amen.
Next weekend, the second weekend in February, used to be celebrated by marking the birthday on February 12th of President Abraham Lincoln. But sadly, that has changed. It's morphed into the relatively bland and forgettable President's Day later in the month. In recent decades, the date of February 12th was marked only by a few college campuses as the birthday of Charles Darwin. But about 10 years ago, that, as all things do, tend to evolve into Evolution Weekend, which picked up by a significant number of liberal churches under the auspices of the Clergy Letter Project. 2 years ago, the title and scope changed again as the focus expanded to science and religion. Now, as many as 300 to 400 congregations and humanist groups celebrate this weekend. And Nadine is beginning to wonder why I'm going through all of this to introduce her. And it's because, purely by accident, because this was the Sunday we invited her to come and she was available to speak to us. Purely by accident, our gathering this morning is the very first of more than 150 services that will take place over the next 2 weeks for Science and Religion Super Week. Not to steal the title from the game of fake football. I'm sure Nico will set us straight on that next Sunday. Nadine comes to us to speak about the Citizens Climate Lobby, a group that got my approval and attention last year when Nadine spoke to the national meeting of the UU Humanists. Why did I suggest her for this speaking role this morning? Because the organization with which she works, CCL, Citizen Climate Lobby, works hard to find approaches to the climate crisis that are bipartisan in nature and routinely attract people from across the aisle. because TCL lobbies for bills that will win support from not only activists and labor, but also the business community. And because TCL, most of all, has a sense of humor. Starting last week in Ann Arbor and out west on where the snow falls in the high mountains, CCL activists built snowmen, or I should say snow people protesters, in front of public buildings holding protest signs about climate emergency. And why am I pleased that Nadine in particular is here today to speak to us? Because in my experience, she's thorough, she's flexible, and she's enthusiastic about what has become her life's work. In her own words, she is the proud spouse to Louis, a loving mom to 3 young adult men, and a dog mom to 2 large and lovable dogs. And when she's not doing all of that and saving the environment, she's also a part-time yoga instructor. And I'm exhausted and I'm just reading the introduction. So Nadine, it's all yours.
Very good. Thank you. Good morning. Can I have a thumbs up if you all can hear me? Excellent. All right. So my name's Nadine. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm joining you on the ancestral land of the Lenni Lenape. I'd like to thank Roger Brewin for connecting me to your congregation and suggesting that I speak. Thanks to Joanne, Reverend Jim, and all the other members of BUUF who put today's service together. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Like many of you, I was not raised as a Unitarian Universalist. My husband and I were raised in different faith traditions, and Unitarian Universalism is what we agreed would work for us as we began our lives together. I've been a UU for over 30 years. Unitarian Universalism is unlike many religions where there is much guidance as to what to do and what to believe. We don't have a creed, we don't have dogma. The Unitarian Universalist 7 or 8 principles have helped me ground my beliefs about humanity and how to live a good and purposeful life. The 1st and 7th principles encompass so much and hold a great deal of meaning to me personally. The inherent worth and dignity of each person and the respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part. I'm quite passionate about Unitarian Universalism, its emphasis on democracy, compassion, justice, equity, peace, and liberty. The encouragement to examine life's big questions and big questions of society and work towards answering them together in the most effective and just ways that we can. Unitarian Universalism doesn't tell you what to believe about the nature of God and the universe. Unitarian Universalism doesn't tell you how to live your life. We have principles to guide us and spiritual communities in which to figure these things out together, as I've seen already exemplified in your service this morning. I see Unitarian Universalism as a lived faith. It's a faith that I bring out into the world each day. Did I treat that person with inherent worth and dignity? Reflecting on the 4th principle, did I accept something inflammatory that I saw on social media? Or did I fact check as I exercise my free and responsible search for truth? Did I show compassion toward that person who was clearly having a rough time? Some faith traditions have clear spiritual practices, rituals, or actions that they engage in on a regular basis as a way to express their faith in ways that adherents find meaningful and help them connect to their faith tradition. That might be saying the rosary or praying a certain number of times each day or saying a blessing before they eat. A spiritual practice can be seen as a way to connect you with that which is greater than yourself. Theists, agnostics, and non-theists can all experience a sense of awe and wonder at the beauty and mysteries of the world in which we live. Some people have prayer or meditation as a spiritual practice. I meditate daily. I've been working on this goal for about 4 years. I find that finding some dedicated time to be mindful in my day to be really helpful with regulating emotions and having greater perspective in my life. My strongest meditation streak so far is 290 days. And when I miss a day, I give myself grace and I begin again. About 11 years ago, I was in a very rough period of my life, facing personal health issues, family health issues, and a teenager with severe behavior issues. I felt like each day was almost unbearable. Little in my life felt like it was going right. It seemed like I'd end each day in misery from the day that just passed, and a sense of dread with what the next day would hold. It was a dark time for me. I read an article about the science of having a regular gratitude practice, how it could improve mood and outlook, reduce depression, strengthen resiliency, lower pain, improve sleep. Wow, this all sounded amazing. So I did some more research and I was intrigued by what I found. It was suggested that writing in a gratitude journal before bed could improve mental health, happiness, and sleep quality. It was something I was willing to try. I'm not going to tell you that this was easy or that it changed my life overnight, but taking a few minutes before going to sleep to really reflect on my day and find just one or two specific things that I was grateful for over time really did help me to find more happiness, peace, and perspective in my life. I bought a 5-year happiness journal where the lines are small and there's just enough space to write 1 or 2 sentences. It felt very manageable to me. Interestingly, it was often something in nature that I would express gratitude for. Pretty spring flowers, the sensation of the warm sun on my skin, breathing in crisp, fresh air while being among the trees. This sparked an even deeper connection for me with the beauty of nature and a feeling of awe that it inspires that is around us all the time, that UU's 7th principle. A lot of what I was grateful for, I could relate back to my UU principles. So the practice of reflecting and writing in my gratitude journal has been transformative in my life. The practice of thanking people has brought me much more joy and fulfillment. I've now gone through 2 of those 5-year books, and I'm working on my 3rd one. If I travel, I bring it with me. It's a practice I take very seriously. So it is audience participation time. I invite you to reflect on the last 24 hours. Identify something specific from the last day that you can be grateful for. Not simply, I'm grateful for my health or for my family, but what specific action or moment can you pinpoint from the last day? For me, it was that my dear husband offered to walk the dogs, even though it was my turn, because he knew I had something time-sensitive I needed to do for my job at the yoga studio. Okay, now you've identified your thing. Please take both hands over your heart, one on top of the other, and connect with that feeling of gratitude that you just cultivated. If you'd like to dive deeper into gratitude as a spiritual practice for Unitarian Universalists, I recommend the Spring 2007 UU World article by Galen Gergenrich called The Heart of Our Faith, where he talks about both the discipline of gratitude and the ethics of gratitude. So my talk today was the spiritual practices of a climate advocate. So I talked about one. The other spiritual practice I have relates to me seeing Unitarian Universalism as a lived faith or a faith in action. I have put my faith into action by attending marriage equality rallies, peace vigils, advocating for sensible gun safety laws, protesting our country's military action, and so on. To me, that's a big part of what being a Unitarian Universalist is, that showing up in the world for causes that matter. In that same light, I see my work for the climate as a spiritual practice. It's a way that I take my Unitarian Universalist faith and put it into action in the world. I've cared deeply about climate change for about 13 years. Seeing the Inconvenient Truth movie really made me understand how climate change was happening now and that its effects are being felt around the world. Climate change is a racial justice issue. It's an equity issue. The people most affected by climate change are the ones who have done the least to cause it. They are, in large part, people of color, Black, Brown, and Indigenous. Focusing on climate change makes the most sense to me because all of the other issues I care deeply about, racial justice, the strength of democracy, income inequality, and so on, will all get so much worse if climate change remains unchecked. Scientists have been warning us for decades that our level of greenhouse gas emissions has put humanity on a path where many places on Earth will be uninhabitable by the end of the century if we don't take drastic action to nearly eliminate greenhouse gas emissions and work on sequestering a certain amount of carbon. So my journey to becoming a climate advocate involved being trained as a climate reality project leader in 2012. At that time, we were required to give at least 10 presentations about climate change within a year or so. And I gave those presentations, which were heavily focused on the horrible effects of climate change, and there was little mention of solutions. Audiences were left feeling a little hopeless, and so was I. Raising awareness of climate change issues was a good first step, but like attending a march, it was clear to me that we needed to do much more, and I needed to find a way to put my spiritual beliefs into action. In 2013, I heard about Citizens Climate Lobby. What is Citizens Climate Lobby? Well, Citizens Climate Lobby is a climate change organization that exists to create the political will for a livable world by enabling individual breakthroughs in the exercise of personal and political power. I wanted you to note the two pieces of our mission. Create the political will for climate solutions and enable individual breakthroughs in the exercise of personal and political power. CCL is a climate organization that is focused on solutions. This was a big breath of fresh air for me. Yes, we need to know about the causes and effects of burning fossil fuels, the greenhouse effect, how impacts are felt in rising seas, increased droughts, loss of biodiversity, and so on and so on. But what should be done about it? How do we tackle this huge problem? How was I, as one person, what can I do? So I quickly learned that economists and climate scientists largely agree that a price on carbon emissions is the quickest, most effective single policy tool to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And there are plenty of independent studies to back this up. Paired with a return of those monies evenly to households, what we call carbon cashback policy is progressive, meaning that people with low and moderate incomes come out ahead financially. The United States is the only developed economy, according to the World Bank, that doesn't have a national price on its carbon emissions. And other countries have rising prices on their carbon emissions that help them curb emissions even more. The US is way behind. At my first CCL meeting, I was asked to handwrite a letter to my congressional representative in support of carbon cashback, carbon fee and dividend. I was given guidance and suggested talking points, and I really felt empowered by taking action. I loved that CCL was nonpartisan and engaged with every member of Congress. Not long after I joined my local CCL chapter, a small group of us broke off and created a chapter that was closer to my home in New Jersey. That was almost 9 years ago, and I've been the group leader ever since. In that time, I've seen that idea of a carbon cashback go from concept to actual legislation in the United States Congress. The Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act was introduced in Congress in 2018, in 2019, in 2021, and in 2023. Its current bill number is HR 5744. In 2022, there were 95 co-sponsors on this bill. And over these years, all 3 Unitarian Universalist members of Congress have endorsed it. Did you know that there were 3 Unitarian Universalist members of Congress? Yes. Representative Judy Chu from California is among the legislation's most vocal supporters. And CCL has expanded its policy focus in recent years. We now have 4 policy areas that we work within. They are clean energy permitting reform, healthy forests, energy efficiency and electrification, and carbon cashback. And this year, we've added an extra focus of election engagement, which from what I've heard from your service this morning and the volunteers, it sounds like that's something that might be of interest to some of you. One of the reasons I love CCL is because it's effective. In the past 3 years, CCL's support has helped to get 6 bipartisan pieces of climate legislation passed in Congress. CCL has volunteers in every congressional district in the United States and chapters in most districts. So we can be incredibly effective at putting the pressure on lawmakers to learn about, support, and enact climate legislation. How does my involvement in CCL relate to me being a Unitarian Universalist? This is the part I love the most. CCL is guided by 7 core values. They don't line up perfectly with UU principles, but there is a lot of overlap, a lot in common. So CCL's core values are focus, optimism, relationships, diversity, being nonpartisan, integrity, and personal power. I could do another full talk about the alignment between UU principles and CCL values, but we don't have that kind of time today. One key point for me is that CCL encourages us to approach every interaction with the public, with Congress, with potential supporters, with our members, from a place of respect, gratitude, and appreciation. I've met with dozens of members of Congress and their staffs over the years through CCL. At each meeting, we express some appreciation for the member of Congress. And at each meeting, I identify myself as a person of faith and that my advocacy for the climate comes from a sense of moral imperative. I feel that I'm a better person and I make a better UU since becoming involved in CCL. Imagine an organization where you can take meaningful action about an issue that you care deeply about, where you're encouraged to use your skills and your knowledge to advance that cause, and where the people you interact with are among the smartest, kindest people you're likely to meet. For about 5 years, I've been co-leading the group of Unitarian Universalists in Citizens Climate Lobby. We meet regularly to discuss how we can educate our congregations, ministers, and the larger community about impactful climate solutions and empower them to take action. The UU Action Team has hundreds of members, more than any other faith-based action team in Citizens Climate Lobby. So now you see how being involved in CCL is such a good match for my 2 most deeply held spiritual practices, an active gratitude practice and advocating for climate solutions. Now, luckily for you, CCL has a very strong presence in Michigan, and it would be easy for all or any of you to get involved. There are over a dozen chapters in the state, and there's a new group forming, or kind of reforming, in St. Joseph. They had their first meeting last week and are eager to have new folks join the group. There is a climate advocate training scheduled for Saturday, February 24th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. The location may be the St. Joseph Library, but it hasn't been confirmed yet, hasn't been finalized. But if you'd like to know more about the CCL workshop on February 24th, you can go to this URL. It's tinyurl.com/CCL STJOSEPH, St. Joseph. And I'll have a slide where I'll put that up on the screen in just a moment. I am truly grateful for the opportunity to share this Sunday morning service with each of you. It is my wish for all of you that you find spiritual practices each day that enrich your soul and help transform and care for this world that we share. And now I will share my screen so you can see this information about the CCL workshop on Saturday, February 24th. The tiny URL is there, tinyurl.com/CCL St. Joseph. And then there's an email of a person. It's actually the CCL's regional coordinator, Elizabeth Dell. Her email is Elizabeth, spelled traditionally, .dell, DELL, @citizensclimate.org.
Yes, thank you. I have some good words from Gary Kowalski to extinguish our chalice. Go in peace, speak the truth, give thanks each day, respect the earth and her creatures, for they are alive like you. Care for your body, it is a wondrous gift. Live simply, be of service. Be guided by your faith and not your fear. Go lightly on your path and know that everything is sacred.